Okay, hello everyone. Thank you guys all for coming. This is an awesome setup. I really appreciate it. Just want to thank the builder because our unit wasn't quite 100% ready. So mezzanine's being built, so this is a much safer unit for all you guys to come in. We've got some attendees all the way from Detroit. Shout out to the Ballpoint development team. Thank you guys so much for coming. It's cool to see a lot of familiar faces, some that we've worked with, some that we're just meeting for the first time. But today we've decided to talk about Claude for construction finance. So when I was thinking about the topic with the team, I was listening to the founders of Claude talk about what does Claude use Claude for? And funny enough, the Claude team actually uses Claude oftentimes for their own finances, for their own numbers, tracking tokens, tracking usage. So I thought, if the best company in the world is using this daily for all their Claude work, why shouldn't we be? Let's just wait for this. Now, there's many different trade types in this room. There's some general contractors, there's some electricians, there's some renovation contractors, there's some plumbers. So what do you guys all have in common? You have to know your numbers inside and out. So we're gonna show you exactly how you can do that using Claude today. So here's what we're gonna cover. We're gonna help you guys build your first CFO Claude project. Then we're gonna set up a finance tracker for each individual project. So for those of you guys who have your laptops here today, best thing you could do is open up Claude. And just get Claude on your screen because we're going to do a few interactive demos with you guys. We're going to be able to do it both on the web browser and then desktop. So the web browser is for those of you guys who use the Claude chat, and then the desktop is for those of you guys who use Claude Cowork, which is right on your actual computers using your system files. Thirdly, we're going to capture receipts and invoices instantly. So we're going to show you guys how you can take a whole pile of receipts, a whole pile of POs, snap some photos, and then upload that data right away. I already see some people cheering. That's great. We want to understand your true overhead. So I'm going to show you a very simple method to understand how you calculate your overhead. And then lastly, we're going to show you how to generate monthly income statements for your company on automation every month. All right? So I just want to raise your hand, and it's okay if you don't, but if you know your exact profit margin on your last job. Very, very few. We didn't either until just recently, and that's okay. Because most contractors don't know their real numbers until it's too late. And that's what we want to try and change here today with all you guys being able to track your finances using Claude. Now, the traditional methods to track finance are, here's the facts. So 80% of contractors spend their weeks chasing down payments. I'm sure many of us in this room can relate to that, chasing down payments from contractors or even from clients. 75% of projects come in over budget. Now this is from a Procore report, so I can show you guys the receipts afterwards, but the average net profit margin for construction is 7%, right? It's quite low, right? We all want to be working for a little bit more than 7% profit margins. But why is that? Well, most companies don't have a CFO, right? Does anybody here not know what CFO stands for? Chief Financial Officer. So what does that person do? Well, they know all your numbers, every dollar in, every dollar out, what money you're making, where you're bleeding, what the next 90 days of cash flow look like, always taking an eye on your bank statements. But a CFO is a very costly position, around a minimum salary of about $150,000. Now, about 90% of contractors, you don't have that position in your company. So what I'm going to show you today is that even though you don't have a CFO or a chartered professional accountant full-time in your company, you can still track your finances just like one.
That's great. And you can actually see, if you use AI for this, what does done actually look like? Well, if you guys can't read it here, having an end state for your financial system is having clean books, having your cash flow visibility, seeing what your next 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days look like. You want to make sure that every project's tracked from award to closed. You want to make sure you have no surprises at tax time. In a business, a bank or a buyer can understand in under an hour. So here's everything we're going to show you so that you can consider your business done.
Now, a little bit of caveat before we continue. We still highly recommend getting a CPA to do your taxes at the end of the year. This is not necessarily something that Claude's going to do for you. So please still hire the accountant for those type of activities. So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
We know that every trade runs differently, and your finance system should too. So every one of you guys are going to be either a subcontractor, a general contractor, a property management. But everything is going to have a variation of chart of accounts, cost codes, markup structure, your draw schedule, your subcontractor payment terms.
Yeah. So what we've discovered is all you guys operate differently. You all run different types of businesses. However, you share a lot of the same financial documents, right? So we're going to show you how you can build those templated financial documents. And what we call it is the end state. So we have a list of all the financial documents a company like yourselves may need. And once you've achieved all that list of all financial documents, you have what's called your end state. So everyone wants to work towards that end state. And it doesn't feel like you're just using Claude just to use it. You feel like you're actually working towards something. So a CFO would look at your bank statements, your credit cards, your invoices, your project costs, payroll, overhead, the whole shebang. However, Claude is going to use the exact same inputs that a CFO would, right? So in this case, today we're going to build two types of projects. One is going to be your company CFO, and then one is going to be finances specifically for your individual projects. I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to give you a relatable example. I think we all agree. Who likes getting paid on time? I know I do. I think we all do. But why don't we get paid on time? Anyone have any guesses before we go forward? What's the number one friction point of why contractors oftentimes don't get paid on time? Not billing enough? Not quite. Yes. Oftentimes it's disputes on work that's unfinished. So we're going to show you how to make it undeniable of the work that you've actually completed and provide a really nice statement to the person you're working for. So the average time to get paid in construction, this is probably pretty generous, but is 90 days, right? Oftentimes there's net 90 for a lot of the invoices that you're sending. So construction actually has one of the longest payment cycles in all of industries. I think only manufacturing might surpass that if you're working for one of the big automotive companies. But how can you change that? So the friction point, like Cass said, you didn't finish X, so I'm not going to pay you for Y, right? You didn't finish the work, I'm not going to pay you for it. Fair enough. Okay. So here's the fix that we came up with, which I think we've seen a lot of people successfully do, is make it impossible to dispute what's actually been done in 4 steps. So give Claude your entire project scope and budget for what you're about to do, right? So if you're in a chat, you're going to give Claude your entire project scope, your entire budget of line items, and then what you did. So tell it what you've completed, but add photos and timestamps. And I'll show you why, because it's going to add a timeline of all the things that you've completed. So it's sort of like a work in progress document or progress billing, but on any level you can create that report with Claude. So then Claude will then calculate a rough completion percentage for you against the real budget. So that way when you go to do billing, you can back it up with receipts of what's actually been completed. And then lastly, it'll generate a really nice branded report with your billing attached. So what does that look like in practice? So here's just a quick example that Claude spun up for us. So this is Northside Electrical. They've completed 71% of the job. But then here, they have rough-in wiring, they've got panel and service installation, lighting rough-ins, and then progress complete with the photos attached to it. So you can see here, rough-in wiring, but they've got 12 photos, right? Because it's 2 floors that they're billing for. So they're going around, their guys on site taking photos of each different unit, whatever it is, or each different area of the project, and they're attaching those to their progress billing. So that way when they send them, the person who's paying has a reference point of what they're paying for. And then lastly, it'll take your entire contract value, and it'll say earned to date, you've earned 71% of your contract. And if you send something like this into a GC, or even if you're working directly with consumer, you're sending it to a client, they far more appreciate knowing what's been completed and far more feel better about what they're paying for because they know that the work's been completed, right? They don't have to, meet me on site, make sure everything's actually done properly, make sure you timestamp the photos, make sure you show your work, and oftentimes more than not, probably have a better chance of getting paid for that work. So there's 2 types of financial end states. There's one for your company, right? And there's one for projects. So I want to make that very clear. Last session, we talked about Claude projects. So by the end of today, everyone wants to create a Claude project for finance, which is your overall company, right? Your balance statements, your overhead, and you can snap a photo if you want. And then there's individual projects. You're going to create individual projects for your projects, right? So if I'm working on a commercial building, if I'm working on a residential home, if I'm working on a dentist office, I'm going to create a project for those specific projects. That's really what it's called. Show you what that looks like. John, what does that look like?
So it's really just a different named project, and it's what's going to matter is the information that you put in here. So this is one way to set it up. This is a way that you could do it just in your regular web browser. If you guys go to Claude right now and you set up your project, you can add the files in for your company. And we recommend doing something like May, June, like going by month, and then re-uploading those documents every time. And then everything goes into this project right here. And what's cool is you can share this with your team if you guys have a team account, and just block it for people who need to see it and they can interact with that project as well. So you don't need to go around sending emails of this file going there and there. You have one central place for where you can ask questions about this finance. And then that project as well, you can also share that with your employees. So the guys who are actually working on the field, if there's information that they need, that can be done there, but also about finances, that you can restrict that to just your team as well. So that one will be reserved just for project financials.
Yeah, so then you're probably wondering, what does that actually look like? Well, I'll show you the next example. So here's an example of what would go into your company project, right? So these are different types of financial statements. They could be income statement, cash flow, profit and loss, credit card and bank statements, accounts receivable, your WIP, your cash flow projections. These are all different financial examples that you'd have inside of your company CFO project. That way Claude starts to understand where your company's current health is in terms of finance, and it has access to these templates. So we're going to show you how you can set up a project with these templates so that Claude can actually fill them in for you just based on the information that you input for it. Now that's what it looks like at a company level. Now John's going to show you what it looks like at a project level.
Yeah. And I would recommend, maybe even if you want to take a picture of this, what we like to do is you can get Claude to just analyze this picture and explain to you what each of these documents mean, and actually help you create a template for each of them to put into your company project. So if you just want to take 10 seconds, if you guys want to take a picture.
Okay.
And then this is what's going to go into your individual projects. So same thing, you're thinking of things like project budget or Word, an expense tracker, labor hours log, so every time your guys submit hours, you want to make sure you have a running list of that, a change order log, draw schedule, subcontractor commitment, closeout summary, and that's going to help you create a project profit and loss, your material purchase log. So just things that happen for a job, you want to make sure that all these separate documents are tracking a certain thing, and then you're going to put them together into the project-specific Claude project.
So here's our real-world examples. Everyone gets receipts like these, right? I was just with a contractor the other day who had a whole pile of Home Depot receipts, right? And they're sitting there at night going line item by line item to say, what do we purchase? Which job does it go to, right? It takes quite a bit of time. So what we did, we just simply took the receipt like this, we snapped a photo on Claude and said, categorize these expenses for us in this project statement. So what did it do? It took all these individual items, which are very difficult to see, it categorized them, put the expenses next to it, allocated it to the job, right? So that takes someone, maybe an hour or two of their time every day going through 10, 15, 20 receipts. Now you can just do it by snapping Claude photos of receipts. I'd recommend maybe putting at least maximum 6 receipts in a photo, because sometimes it can get confused. But every time you go to upload a new receipt now, you just put it on the table, you snap the photo, upload it to that project, it'll have the finances for you.
Yeah, so let's see it in Claude. Let's try right now with a receipt that we have.
Yeah.
So this is just a project we set up.
So while John's setting that up, for those of you guys who have never seen Claude, that are brand new to Claude, this is what a project looks like. So you have your project name here, and then you have things called memory, instructions, and files. So the memory is going to be what Claude remembers about this project for you and how it responds to every query you ask it, right? So it remembers your company name, it'll remember how you talk, it'll remember your tone of voice, it'll remember the type of documents you ask for, remember the type of projects you do. It generates this memory. I'll give a quick analogy of, anybody ever watch 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler? The reason he's got to go on 50 First Dates is because the woman that he falls in love with has amnesia. So forgets every single day. So every single day he's got to go on a new date and win over the woman that he loves, right? It's sort of like if you always had to reintroduce yourself to Claude, it would be difficult because every day you have to start from zero. But if you start to build up a memory context, then Claude starts to get to know you, and every time you go back to speak to Claude, it'll understand who you are. And the best way to do that is to ask Claude to interview you. So ask Claude, interview me about myself and my company and how I operate, and it'll give you a series of multiple choice questions that you can then learn how you operate and who you are as a company. And then lastly, here is middle is the instructions. So the instructions are examples like, always make sure you exclude HST, or all these little edge cases of instructions you want to give Claude. Or for example, I only use Google Sheets, so I need a doc, an Excel doc, right? An XLS file. Or I need a CSV file, or any specific instructions you want to give to that project so that every time that it works, it uses your specific outputs and the instructions you gave it. And you're probably wondering, what are all these things here? Well, these are all templates. So we got a budget template on Excel, we got an expense template, we got labor hours, we've got a change order log, a draw schedule. So for all you guys who have templates pre-existing, this is where you would upload them into your company project. Okay? Just gonna hotspot real quick. No Wi-Fi at the moment. But as John's setting that up, does anyone have any questions so far just about setting up your first CFO project or your individual finance project? All clear? Okay, no problem. Let's just try that. It's okay if that doesn't work.
Yeah. We'll show you guys a demo. I can show you on the phone too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So while we're sorting out the Wi-Fi, real quick, how do you cover your overhead? So I had a contractor come to me recently and say, how do I calculate my overhead? Well, we have a really simple method to do so, and it involves two different types of documents. You're gonna need your bank statement and your credit statement. So the easiest way is to go on your online banking, download those two company statements. If you have multiple checking accounts, download those as well. Then upload those to Claude and prompt Claude and say, what charges are repeated in these months? Because your overhead is just your repeated charges that you owe every single month. So you want to understand, what am I repeatedly being charged on my credit card? What am I repeatedly being charged on my checking account statements? And it'll generate you a list and categorize it for you. And that's a very quick way to understand your overhead. Yes?
I just remember from the last session talking about privacy.
Yes.
So are we really uploading our bank statements here?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, because I had a feeling that was going to come up. We're going to talk all about privacy. Okay. But just as an example, so Claude has an entire security page dedicated to it, right? It's SOC 2 compliant. It has all their different metrics of how they keep data safe. Now, there's a very specific way that you can go into the settings and turn off training. And we're going to show you guys how to turn training off.
And that's the only setting. As long as that's off, then we're good.
So there's two examples. If you have a pro account, you have to go in and shut it off. If you have an enterprise account, it is automatically off. Now, there's a setting inside of, it's called privacy, if you have a pro account, and you can turn that off. And it turns training off for the Claude model. We'll show you what that looks like.
So we turn it off, it's more private.
It won't train on your data. Yes.
I don't know what's going on. My computer's just
So
connecting.
I give this analogy too, right? A lot of us are with bank unions, or we're with credit unions, or these different types of banks. They have very similar compliance metrics as, say, like a Claude would, right? So you have some of the largest banks in the world, JP Morgan Chase, right? Bank of America. They're using these Claude models, and they're trusting them with their data. So the idea is always doing your own due diligence and looking through their security metrics, making sure training is turned off, and then if you still don't feel comfortable at that point, you can always just categorize all your expenses, black out the actual people that you're paying to if you want to go through and edit them yourself, and then upload them that way and get general overall category expenses. Okay, our first project.
Nice. Cool. So this one, we had some sample bank statements in 2 months. So we can actually do that right now. If we just ask a question, and we usually like dictating. Hey Claude, what's in the 2 months of bank statements? Look at my credit statement and my checking statement.
So John just used the voice to text model, which we can explain what that means. So what is it doing right now, John?
So it's just looking at your bank statements. I just uploaded them to a project. It's reading the Excel skill, so it can read Excel files and pull everything out and be able to analyze that. So while it's doing that, it's pulling my credit card statement, it's pulling the past 2 months and analyzing for charges that are similar on both. So basically it's trying to find, what's constant, what's your fixed expenses that are happening here, and how much are you actually spending to, keep the lights on every month. So this is the actual overhead charges. So when we set this up, we want to make sure that every job that you do is covering not only that job and what you're paying your guys, but also your entire company, so that your company doesn't go below the red. So We see here you can actually categorize your credit card expenses for May. Equipment rental, $3,000, fuel and vehicle. It goes in your checking account. It can do quick flags. So one question that I would ask as a follow-up is, what's my total overhead and what are my fixed expenses here?
So while that's loading, why is it important to even calculate your overhead? Well, a lot of contractors come to us and say, I want to buy another truck, or I want to expand my office, or I want to hire more employees, or anytime you need to make a large company purchase or a large company change, you need to understand what your burn rate is, what your overhead is. So understand what you're spending every month so that 6 months down the road, you don't run out of cash, right? So it's one of the most important things that any company can know is what's my monthly burn rate? What do I have to make this month just to keep the lights on, right? And some of the tightest subcontractors who work with some of the largest, they know it down to the dollar, right? So they know if they're gonna make an investment, if they're gonna expand, if they're gonna create a new shop, it's gonna exponentially change my overhead by this amount, and we can afford that because we can bring in that amount of work.
Yeah. So that's what it just did here. Instead of you having to go through each credit statement, match against which subscription went where, it just did that automatically. And then it can show you what happened in April, May, and then that monthly rate. And then we see here 2 subscriptions that weren't there are now there in May. So that's exactly what flagged here too.
Right.
And then your variable overhead. And then your total overhead summary.
So then what you can do is once you have your overhead, you can take that month's bank statement. So let's say we just finished May. Here's my general overhead. I would upload my May statements and be like, was I about on par for what my normal overhead is, or did my overhead rise? Right? And it'll kind of give me the analytics of you spent more money here or here. And then for those of you guys who hire an accountant at the end of the year, what we like to do now is create 12 months of statements for them, right? So they can see directly from our bank numbers what our statements are. So then actually when you go to your accountant and they see how organized you are, they're gonna double check against your statements, but it saves them a lot of time of having to go through your statements themselves. They may be using AI on their end, I'm not sure, but it'll save them a lot of time in organizing what money's coming in and out of the company on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So that's overhead. Now, John, how do you track project health?
So maybe you just want to ask your individual projects. So when we talked about setting up those individual Claude projects, maybe you want to ask, what's my project at? What are my expenses? What hours am I at? How much am I charging my guys? And so that's exactly what we can ask. What's really cool about Claude is you can treat it like a thinking partner. It's not an AI that's just like really good at doing one thing. It's good at just thinking through with you to get to a reasoning. And then what's really cool is that you can bring your own expertise into it and explain to it, like, I'm in this company, I do this role, here's how my jobs usually run. It will learn that and be able to help you answer in that tone of voice, in that reasoning that you already have. So same way that we're asking here a question, what I like to do is usually create a new chat as well. So just go back to the project and I say, give me a dashboard breakdown of how my project is looking for these past 2 months based on the project data.
So now he has that conversation inside his AI project. So that every time that he goes back to that project, it has that pre-existing knowledge of what he's looking for, so it doesn't have to retrain itself on what it was looking for. That's the whole idea behind keeping things in projects instead of individual conversations. So for our team and people who work with us, they don't use individual conversations just for the sake of creating conversations. Every conversation has to be associated with a project. So in Claude, you're gonna spend most of your time inside of projects instead of just overall general questions. Because that's what sandboxes the context and creates better conversation.
Exactly. And what I asked there for give me a dashboard breakdown, it's really cool because Claude can create dashboards right in the chat like this. So you can either ask it to create you an HTML file, which will just be like a regular website file, or you can get it something in the chat. So if you just want a quick dashboard of like, give me a little progress bar and give me percentages of where all my jobs are at, it can do that right in this chat. You can ask it to create a PDF report, an Excel report of how it's doing. You can ask it to create an email to send it over to everyone that should be involved. You can do everything from this chat. So you see here, it's creating this dashboard, giving me the main KPIs, the main metrics that I'm looking for. So the revised contract, percentages for each labor, my draw schedule, everything that's been paid, one that's still submitted, two upcoming draw schedules, my change order log. So everything that's pulling from was already in the Excel sheet. We're just giving you guys another place to be able to see this information, interact with it, and actually make a decision from it. Because an Excel sheet is great, but not if you don't make any decisions based on it, because it's so messy to look at, and you don't really know what you're looking at, and maybe you're reading the wrong line. So if you just need a quick visual, this is the simplest way, and that was about 3 minutes of just us putting the Excel stuff, and then gives us a full breakdown of where that job's at.
Now, what takes us a step further is now that you have that financial data in there, you could say, okay, based on my current schedule, based on the project that's been completed so far, what should I watch out for a few months down the road? Like, what are some things that we might run into that might draw this overboard, or what change orders have affected the schedule and why, right? So you can understand those insights because you've uploaded all the data. So you guys as business owners have many different queries about the data that you have. It can pull all that and generate it in any type of visual format that you like. If you prefer dashboards, if you prefer PDFs, if you prefer Excel sheets, whatever type that you like, it can generate and pull that for you.
Yep. And it can actually run on a schedule. So even if you have a set every 2 weeks, generate me this report, email me at Monday morning. It can do that and give this exact breakdown for you. And since we asked for it to give us an analysis, it actually did what David just said. It gave us the good. So your gross margin's at a 35% versus the actual 4.2% budgeted. And then where the tight spot is. So May was a heavy payment month. So it actually extracts from that and doesn't just give you the information, but can reason with you as to kind of what you want it to output. And then what you should act on. So pending items. So you have a draw, you have 2 invoices that are still pending approval, you have some change orders, and then it gives you a last breakdown at the end. So the project's roughly at 52% through its schedule. And then you can keep chatting with it to get whatever other insight you would need.
Yeah. Now, for those of you guys who use apps, so if you use construction apps, if you use Procore, or if you use Shelto, or if you use Jobber, or you use Buildertrend, oftentimes you can have export features, right? Or there's something called an MCP, which gets a little bit more complex, but you can actually connect your construction apps to Claude. However, if you're just getting started and you already have a construction app, the best thing you can do is just export a summary of your hours and project expenses. And if you don't have an export button, just simply screenshot it, upload it to Claude, and say, create this budget template for me and show me where my overruns are. All right, so there's 3 options. You either connect it through an API. If you have any questions of what that means, you're welcome to reach out to us. Secondly, you can export the data from your app. Or thirdly, the easiest way is just screenshot the summary of that data and upload that screenshot to Claude if you're currently tracking it on a different system.
For the connector, a really simple way, if you guys are on Claude right now, you can click that little plus button on the bottom left of the chat, and you're going to see this little thing called connectors. And I see we have a few here. You can just click add a connector, and you can see if your app is on there for your construction app.
Yeah, for those of you guys who see QuickBooks, I don't know if any of you guys have tried connecting QuickBooks. Unfortunately, currently in Canada, it's not available. At least for us, it wasn't, which would have been really nice. But we've tried many times to connect QuickBooks, and we keep running into an error. So if anyone has successfully connected QuickBooks, please let us know. But right now, the connector seems to only be working in the US, so, which might be helpful for some of our Detroit members here.
Yeah. So that's just a quick project health. You guys have any questions? I know we're going through it. Anything you want us to ask that you want to pull? Okay.
We have some example questions here coming up.
Yep.
Okay, so here's a few examples of prompts, right, that you can start to ask your company projects. So act as my CFO, hear my bank statements and credit card statements, organize every dollar in and out, and tell me where I stand. That's very baseline, very simple kind of preliminary prompt. A second one might be, here are my expenses this week. Flag anything over 500 that wasn't in the original budget, right? Here's my draw schedule. Tell me what I should be billing this month and what's still in holdback. So for those of you guys who work on bigger jobs, right, with many line items, and you have to, every time you go to make a bill, let's say you have $1 million PO. Now you're gonna bill against that, which is called progress billing. So every time that you complete a scope of work, let's say after month 1, I've completed X percentage of the job. So here's my progress billing tracker. You have all your line items, and I know I've gone through this activity with someone in this room, and you're gonna go through and make sure that every line item matches up to the work that's actually been completed. So that way you can bill against the total PO. right? And then provide that photo proof, provide the receipts, provide the timestamps, and submit that for your billing. Because oftentimes, I mean, we've even been in this case where you just submit an invoice, right, for the work that might be done. We're 50% done the project. Okay, great. Show us why, right? And we go back, we create everything why. It's sort of the newest metric now, and it takes a lot of time when you do it traditionally. But when you use AI and leverage that, it can scan through quite fast and create you a better document than you could be able to create yourself, right? So, privacy, the big topic of privacy. How do you know that your numbers stay yours?
Yeah, so like Dave was saying, so Claude is built using the same standard banks use. And for you guys who know some technicalities, Claude has all the certifications you probably could imagine for data safety. So your regular SOC, your ISO, your European, your health, finance. So there's specific regulations that they need to pass. So they're certified across all of these. There's things that it's data encryption in transit, which just means when you're sending your information over the internet, it's encrypted. When it's in a database, they're sitting, it's encrypted. People can't hack into it.
So I'm going to challenge you, John. What does encryption mean?
Encryption is just like fumbling words in a way that someone would have to know the secret code of how those words were fumbled to re-scramble it back together in the original order. So it's just like a secret code that developers use to make sure that not everyone can see that message and understand what it is.
Does that make sense? Encryption? Okay.
So employees can't read your conversations by default. That's one of the questions we get asked is, are my employees going to see my financial information just because they're on the same app? And the answer is no. Unless you give them access to a project that has these files uploaded, you can control their roles and what they see and what they upload to the app. And even their own conversations, those are private to themselves. So in terms of conversations, everything's private except the files you share.
Let's quickly show that just for everyone real quick. We just swipe over to Claude into a project. So we go back to the project. So sharing, there's this share button here. So if we click share, for example, everyone at Shelta right now has access to this project. However, if John wanted to change that, he could change it to this setting, which is only people invited. Now you need an enterprise account, which I believe starts around $200 a month, to have a team account where you can share things internally with your whole team. So let's say it's a generalized project that you want to share with your whole team, then you just switch it to everyone at your company. But let's say you only want to share it with your financial controller, yourself, maybe a project manager, then you can create your own private project and invite people to that project. So a very simple way of understanding this is anyone that's ever used Google Docs or anyone that's ever used OneDrive, when you share a doc with someone, you can kind of pick their email, who you're going to share with, how it's shared. It's the same way that it works in Claude. You just share it with who you're looking to share with.
And then here I'm just adding David specifically, and then I'm seeing if he can just view the project. He can't really edit the files, he can't do anything. He can just ask questions. But if I click can edit, he can actually delete the files, upload more files into it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Privacy.
Yeah, and like we said before, so if you guys are on Claude right now, you can go to settings. You're going to see a little button that says privacy. And you're going to turn off the option that says help improve our AI models. That's if you don't have a team account. Because if you do have a team account, that is off by default. You need to actually opt to go into that, but we don't want that. So I can just show you quickly what that looks like.
You're on your team or your team?
Organization.
You go to your personal? No, your personal. Not on the Shelta one, if you go back. If you go back to the icon and go to personal. So you're going to go to your personal, if you have a personal account, you're going to go personal. And then you're going to go to settings. You just, yeah. Settings. Hopefully it lets you because you're privacy. Okay, then you're going to go to privacy. Okay, so what John just did there was he went to settings, he went to privacy, and then here's the option right here. It's called help improve our AI models. So that's where Claude can train on your data, but if you switch that off, Claude's no longer training on your data. So it's just a switcher in your personal or pro account, But if you're on a team enterprise account, that's automatically off because Claude understands that companies doing large amounts of data inside their AI want that to be kept to their company.
If you ever want to see what data Claude has for you, you can even try exporting the data and seeing, is this too sensitive for me to be putting in? And so that's a quick exercise that you could do as well.
Now, people often ask us, should I turn off location metadata, right? What does location metadata even mean? Well, that actually gives contextual location data to the model, so it understands, like, I'm looking for contractors in my area. It would understand, oh, you're looking in Windsor because it's pinning you here in Windsor, right? So that's not as big a deal. It's some people prefer not, but if you're okay with it understanding where your location is, you'll have more localized data to what you're asking. So we go back to, and just to reiterate, Claude uses Claude for their numbers, right? Their finance. I've listened to the founders and the CEO, and they talk about how important it is for Claude to run their models using their financial data, right? It gives them insights that they don't even see coming, right? When you're dealing with that large of numbers and having to sift through that much data, it's very important to be able to run these models to speed up your process. Not replace it, but speed it up.
Yeah. And just reiterating again, you have two ways to set it up on the Claude chat, or whoever uses the Claude desktop app, you have that option called Cowork. So if you guys are familiar with Cowork, that's where it can basically access your local folders in your computer. So if you're not working with, you don't want to re-upload to every single project in Claude, you can just have a local file in your computer, like your company, and then each project has its own file, and then everyone can update that. If you use Claude Cowork on the desktop version, you can just point to that folder and ask questions about that, and it will use those files as the context for that project too.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to kind of take it to the next level, that's a really cool way to try out Claude Cowork. It's the exact same setup that we showed you in terms of projects, but now they can just access your local computer.
Yeah, how many people in here have tried Cowork instead of just the chatbot? Cowork. So Cowork is localized on your computer, meaning it can actually access your folders for you. So a quick analogy, which I did with some people sitting here today, is let's say you have a whole list of POs, a whole list of invoices inside of a local folder, and you want to tell Cowork, can you go in there, read all that list, rename it, reorganize it for me, refolder it for me? Claude Cowork will actually go into your computer, it'll rename all those files based on what's in the actual file itself, and then categorize them accordingly. The chat browser on your actual web browser doesn't have that functionality, but Cowork has the functionality to co-work with you on your local computer. Now, it does open up more capability, so before using Cowork, I highly recommend either reaching out to us to say how to use Cowork, or there's a Cowork course on Claude itself where it walks you through how to set up your first Cowork, how to set up your first Cowork project, and create your first folder on your computer. Because then no longer do you have folders on the web, now you actually have folders on your desktop that Cowork is working inside of, and you're calling upon those folders. So what's our goal? Why are we doing this, right? The biggest idea is that we think that we can help bring 20% more of a profit margin when you actually know your numbers, right? So the goal isn't to have nicer looking reports. The whole goal here is to make each company more profitable. I know sitting with a few of you guys in this room here, just even going over your credit card statements and uploading those and saying, which of these items, how many subscriptions do I have? And I know one contractor had 5 extra subscriptions that they were paying $700-800 a month that they didn't even use. Right? And then eliminate those, multiply that by 12 months, great, there's your savings. Okay, what's the next thing? Well, I didn't know that I was overrun on this project, so actually I should probably make sure that I keep an eye on this project moving forward. Or, I have way more labor on this project than I invoice, so maybe next project I'm going to have more on that project. I'm going to put more hours towards that project, right? We want to find all these different nodes within the company so we can add that 20% of margin utilizing AI. John.
So the people who build Claude use it to produce their own financial statements, like we said. When we tell you guys this, it's not because we're wanting you to hand your business to AI. It's just we want you to spend less hours doing admin work and more actual construction work. It's freeing up time to do the actual work that you're there for. And we said this a couple weeks ago, but what is a business? If you break it down in its simplest form, it's you offering a service and charging more than it costs you to actually produce that service. So if you guys are running a business where it's costing you more to do that service than it is to actually sell it, what is a business for?
Yeah.
So that's essentially everything that's boiling down to you want to have data. AI is going to help you analyze that data. You're going to know your numbers, and that's going to be able to help you make decisions that are going to drive your profit higher.
Yeah. And speaking with a lot of successful contractors in the room, I've asked many of them, like, what do you think separates you from some of the earlier contractors? And a lot of it is knowing your numbers, right? Knowing when to push and bet a little bit more or buy that piece of land or hire that other employee versus the ones who are kind of just hoping every month that they make it by, right? Knowing your numbers, as many business owners, you guys in here, is probably one of the most important things for you when you're making decisions. And now we have an exciting announcement, which I believe is next.
Yeah. You guys are hearing a lot of Claude, 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 Claude.
Yeah.
We love Claude.
Yeah.
But that leads to this announcement that we want to make.
Yeah. So, okay, first, why Claude? Well, Claude, in our opinion, we've used many different AIs. We've used ChatGPT, we've used Gemini, we've used Granola, we've used all these. However, Claude, in our opinion, is head and shoulders the strongest AI that we've yet to see, right? And if you think about it, they are very, very focused on making their user experience as simple as possible. If you notice, Claude has come up with model after model after model, right? They came up with co-work. They allowed everyone to code themselves. You can code yourself on Claude, right? And the reason why we're also so big on Claude is because we have very exciting news for you. We have the opportunity to partner with Claude, meaning that they're very interested in understanding how construction, contractors, and real estate developers actually work boots on the ground, right? Because they have, they're working with large banks, they're working with medical institutions, they're working with manufacturing, but boots on the ground information, all of you guys sitting in this room, there's less than 1% adoption globally of AI in construction. So you guys are already part of a very small group globally that's actually leveraging AI in your businesses. And we have the opportunity to teach Claude, and we want to send a video submission to them of all of you guys talking about what you use Claude for, what your company name is, what your trade type is, and what you'd like to see it do better. Now you guys have an opportunity to alter the way in which Claude generates its models for construction. So they want to understand what you guys are currently using it for. Now we have thousands and thousands of minutes of transcriptions from all you guys giving us incredible information. But if anybody would like to explain what they're using Claude for, what they wish it could do better, Elliot and Avery are going to be filming you at the back. We're happy to give you that content. You can post it yourself. What we'd like to do is create a montage of contractors speaking about Claude, what they'd like to see it do, submitting that video, and keeping you guys posted if things actually change the needle. But we have a real opportunity here to change the way Claude is used in construction, and you guys are all the boots on the ground that are going to be capable of helping us with that. And there's also bags of espresso in it too, if you guys would like a bag of espresso after your testimonial. So how can you get started? We have this cool free community, which is these big signs behind us, which is called AI for Contractors. We meet every Tuesday. There's 121 people in it now. Every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, we do an online call. We talk about Claude. We work through problems. Think of it like our own co-working session. So it's sort of like office hours, where you can come ask questions about Claude. How do I generate my first invoice template? How do I generate a balance sheet? Right? How do I generate images? How do I do transcriptions? We go over different topics of using Claude. It's free. It's 7 o'clock every week. And then we post all those recordings inside the group. And then there's 121 other people where you can post questions and chat with people. And it's kind of cool because we've had some contractors hire each other in that group. We've had like multiple electricians sit together and talk about how to use Claude inside of the electrical industry, which I think is super cool. But it's AI for Contractors. You can scan this QR code. It's free to join. Just your name, your email, and you're in. And then you're kept up to date on all the things that we're doing with AI in construction.
Yeah,
what do you do?
We got your digital audit. So if you guys know us, we're talking about end state. We have a version in our website that you can go to our page and take an audit yourself and go through, does my company have this process, this process, this process? And this audit kind of takes you through mapping 6 pillars of your company across marketing, across operations, across your web presence, and then giving you a clear score at the end of that so you know exactly where you should start.
Yeah. And then getting set up for the first time, you're going to set up 2 projects. First, your company's CFO, which is your company finance project, and then set up one individual project just for one of your ongoing projects at the moment and upload your budget for that project and just see how it works for one project. Now, just to give you a bit of like, why should I even do this? Well, we have contractors sitting in this room who have reached a 56% profit margin since starting 3 months ago with Claude. 3 months. right? Nearly doubled, tripled their revenue, but more importantly, their profit margin. Because it's all cool and fun to make a lot of revenue, but it's cooler to have a better profit margin, right? So that's only 3 months using this tool. Because the beauty is you guys are already boots on the ground, you guys already know how things operate, you just now have this superpower tool to assist you in your process. And I promise you, you'll see the gains, even just after a month of using it. So if you take away anything from today, download Claude, try your first project, and see how that runs.
Awesome.
So we just want to open up the floor. Any questions? Again, QR code if you guys want to join the community. We just want to open it up to any questions you guys might have.
Why Claude and not ChatGPT?
John, you want to?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. I think their model's a lot stronger. If you ever try talking to it, I actually saw a comparison the other day of how Claude answers. It's more paragraphs, more human focused, whereas ChatGPT has more bullet points, like short, snappy sentences. So in terms of conversation, it's a better understanding model. Actually, ChatGPT and OpenAI, the company who made ChatGPT, they just said recently they're focusing their models for coding agents, so actually creating code. So that actually decreased the performance on the conversations they have, data analysis, and it shows kind of the direction that that company wants to take. Now you have projects, you have other things that are similar to Claude, but I think in terms of the general feature set that you have available with Claude, like co-work, you can actually code websites, code things yourselves through Claude, and it's just the same, or if not better performance than some of the OpenAI models. Their privacy, and I think just some ethical values behind the company.
Yeah.
Just some insider information, but all the people who created Anthropic are still there. Whereas OpenAI, you guys have probably heard, like they're suing each other, there's internal conflicts, like just the company structure itself doesn't hold up. So when we look at Anthropic, like what they stand for, their mission too,
Yeah.
I think that's a company we want to support and that we see ourselves being with. So that's.
And one more fun fact, Claude actually started as an AI safety company. So their initial mission was to work on safety in the world of AI. So their founder's ethos revolves a lot around, if you've read some of the headlines with the Pentagon and some certain things, but their ethos is all around safety. So their founder used to work for OpenAI, work for Facebook, I believe, Meta, and then wrote many, many papers on, okay, AI is coming, and you can foresee what it's capable of, but I know we're gonna need to safeguard this, right? So their whole ethos behind safety is something that we really relate with, because biggest hesitation with using AI is like you said, I don't want to give it my information, right? But if I were to give my information to any of these AI companies out there, my top pick would be Claude every day.
I was just gonna say that I've heard that ChatGPT has been biased, like ethnically and like some other stuff, and like Claude has been generally, for the public, people say it's more a neutral, safe kind of AI versus obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you kind of got it.
Yeah, exactly. Everything stems from like the belief of the founder, right? It's expressed in the model. It's really interesting, but if you think of large language models, which is what AI is, it's just a set of training data that helps it to predict the next word. So if the words you give it to train is just like not good, is not ethical, then the model is just gonna output things that are not ethical. So that's why it really matters like what a company stands for. You see that in the quality of their work. That's the same with contractors. If a contractor tells people that they're not going to pay them on time, you're going to see that their work is not the greatest. Working with them is not going to be the greatest afterwards.
Yeah. Devin. Yeah, that's a great question. So for those of you who don't know, Google Notebook LM is another free tool we presented before. That's a great tool to learn anything, right? Because it creates different outputs than Claude might. Claude can still do your general slide decks, it can still do all those things, but if you want to learn mass amounts of information, Notebook LM is still a very great tool for that, because it can generate you mind maps, it can generate you a video, it can generate you a podcast, it can generate you a visual slide deck. It's still a very excellent tool for learning, and it's something that we still use to this day. Now, if I'm trying to do actual actionable stuff on a project, I'm using Claude. Like if I want to generate budget statements, if I want to generate schedules, if I want to do anything like deliverable-wise for the actual progress of the project, I'm using Claude. If I just want to get my team up to speed and learning about the project, then I'm going to Notebook LM real quick, right? But you'll notice that Claude recently released something called Claude Design. If anyone's tried Claude Design, it's very cool, where you can now upload mass amounts of information and create any design you want. So you could generate any visual you wanted, but Notebook LM is a bit of an easier interface right now to do that. So I wouldn't shelf Notebook LM. I'd still use it to learn about your project and then use Claude to execute on your project. That would be my take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perplexity.
Yeah. I think it comes down to like, there's a lot of tools out there. There's so many screwdrivers you could use, so many, whatever tool you use for your trade. It's about finding one that really sticks and that your team will use. Perplexity, I've noticed that's really good at keeping up to date with latest information. Financial like research in terms of like stock market, that's kind of what they went really heavy on. If you actually look at their main page, you see it's gonna be like stocks went up, news here, everything here. Like it's really about the world and how you use AI to find out what's going on in the world. So it's really interesting that these tools have a really specific use case that they kind of point you towards. So I've used Perplexity for research in the world. So I don't ever discount a tool. I kind of see what their use case is for, maybe see how I can implement that into my workflow.
You could also turn Claude on research mode. So in the chat itself, it has an option to drop down. If we maybe swipe real quick and go to if you go to one of your other account chat. So if you go here, use style.
No, I think it's because it's not paid.
So if I go here, okay. Research. So if I click research mode, what that's doing is taking a different mode of chat. And it's less of like putting out deliverables. Now it's going to do deep research, and the answer is going to take a little bit longer because it's going to look through all these sources. And the cool thing is while it's loading, if I were to ask a question, there's a little drop-down menu, and you click that drop-down menu, it'll show you all the different websites, all the different articles, everything that it's reading to come up with your answer. So I would basically say try Perplexity, try Claude, and turn on research mode and just see which you get is better.
Yeah, it's just interesting because in Perplexity, you have the options like ChatGPT, Claude, like different options. Like, I guess Perplexity isn't exactly an AI, but it's just a center, homepage for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they call it kind of a harness, that it's just like the framework, but then they put like use this AI for this, use this AI for this. It's just different models that you could pick and choose. But then they made it really for like a specific use case that is like research to go off of. So, yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
How do you ensure like full safety while giving access to apps or files?
Yes.
How do you ensure how much data is allowed users to see?
That's a great question. So when you go to your connectors, if you just go to connectors real quick, there's an option to turn things on and off for different apps that you connect. So let's just go to, I don't know, Gmail, for example, or Google Calendar. So it's a little cut off, but this gives you all the different actions that Claude would do with your connected app. So it's going to give you three options: always allow, ask before you do it, or never allow. There's three options. So if you wanted to retrieve specific emails from your thread, you can turn on always allow. What I always recommend people is turn on the center one, which will ask you before it does the action. So that way at least you know it's not just going to act on your behalf, it's still going to ask you before it does that command.
And even if you restrict it, if you see here, it's categorized by read only, so it can only see information. If you want to not have it like write any emails ever, you can restrict that and block it from ever writing emails. But you can get a summary of all your emails and get a daily report of what happened in my inbox, categorize these emails into like what I should respond. That it could do that, and you could block it from ever writing any email. So these are these MCP tools that we said, which is just connectors into whatever app you wanted to connect it to.
Yeah, it's a good question. Any questions? Dave.
So obviously everyone has a choice of picking a model that suits their style, maybe a little nuance with their abilities. Do you see like a open source option where you go to
Right. It's OpenClaw running your own model.
Yeah. Yeah, OpenClaw's been really good recently, but I don't know if you've seen that people have been posting it and they've been racking up bills because they just kind of let it run. And it was kind of interesting because these past few months, we were seeing kind of what happened with OpenClaw. Kind of, it was hyped, but then there was no real use case for it because Claude also released certain, like the co-work is kind of what OpenClaw could do. But to your point of open source models, like Google released their Gemma models that can run like I can run a model on my computer right now offline. So I was on the plane a few weeks ago just running Gemma. It was obviously slower, but I could code, I could still use AI in my local computer. So even if you want to set up a super nice like in-house AI model, you could download Google's best model and have it run almost like one of the lower end tiers of Claude. So you don't need so much expensive compute anymore, but there's definitely some really nice open source models. And what's cool is you could even, going super deep in more training, is actually training in your own data. So you can improve a model to be like, you know, this is Petretta's model. Like we have our specific large language model that responds exactly how we want it to. That would be kind of like the next level implementation of taking an open source model and customizing it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I found very useful, and I don't know if I explored a lot, are there like Telegram commanders where you can communicate back and forth with your mobile device, or you can actually use the app on your mobile?
Yeah, so there's a few ways, because you could toggle so that your computer stays alive. When you send a message, it can turn your computer on and do stuff in your computer.
Yeah.
So sometimes David's texting me, he's like, hey, can you do this?
Yeah. Yeah. Explain that story a little slower.
So Claude has an option that basically says, if I text from my phone, I can help it to activate my computer from my phone. So if I'm at the grocery store, someone says something like, this app is broken, I have this option that I said, Claude, please fix this bug. It turns my computer on, spins up code, fixes that database, and then sends me, hey, it's done. Do you want me to, make it live? I'm like, yep, go ahead. And it's basically controlling my computer from my phone. So it's kind of like the same interface that you could with that OpenClaw of like, you could text it. Exactly, dispatch.
I used to walk around like this all the time, and I'd even walk to my truck, I'd walk like this, and I'd put my computer like this, make sure it was hotspotted, because you could never close your computer. If you had something running for Claude, you always had to keep your computer open. But now through what Dave just mentioned, through dispatch, you can actually run your Claude even when your computer's closed. So it could still be running tasks for you. So anything you can do on your computer, you can now do from your phone. Actually, the creator of Claude Code from Anthropic said that he uses his phone 80% of the time, he's running commands because he's so busy, from his phone to Claude, barely even using their desktop. Their phone is becoming their biggest tool. So for those of you guys who don't have it, it's called dispatch, and you could do most of the things from your phone. So one cool thing actually sitting right here, Seamus has done this before, he just finished a walkthrough with a client, just finished a quote, recorded the whole thing, uploaded it to Claude, and said, create me a proposal for the time I get back to the office, I want it ready. Gets back to the office, his proposal's ready. Sends it off to the client, says, oh, I just got, the client say, how do you do that, right? So it's magic, but yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah. But I just want to do a quick lightning round because you use Claude. I know many of you guys use Claude. What's your favorite skill? What's the one skill that's saved you so much time?
Proposal generation. So like I can provide it with photos, dimensions, like the whole thing, and it knows our pricing, like what we're
You say it a little louder for everyone.
Yeah. So creating proposals, it knows like our pricing, how we quote things like all the time. So I'll be able to just provide the information, the sizing, photos of it, and then it knows to ask me questions about certain areas, and then I can do the proposal like literally 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's just like, we used to take us maybe 3-4 hours of actual time sitting down doing it, calling people, pricing this out, figuring this out, and now it does it all.
Did you have to give it any pre-existing templates?
Yeah, I gave it like tons of old quotes, what we use per square foot for tile, like what our app, I had to it honestly took me a couple days, but I explained our standard process for like pretty much every scope of work we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Keith, a quiet power user over there, but what's a skill example, sorry to put you on the spot, that you use? Yeah, one of the biggest. Yeah. 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 Thank you for sharing. I know the CNC team sitting here. I know you guys are power users as well of AI. I know that Dan uses it for meetings, for example, right? Transcribing team meetings where you guys meet weekly and then throwing it into Claude and saying, okay, based on the ongoing projects, based on what happened in this meeting, where are we at currently? And it just runs that report before every meeting. Has that been helpful in the team meetings? And
I would say so.
yeah,
I mean, it takes a lot of the legwork of having to remember everything that's talked about.
yeah,
For a while there, it was like, oh, we talked about last week. Now it hits a lot of the points, right?
yeah,
I think some of the challenges are that it kind of reads our list too long.
yeah,
So it's dialing into what works for us, basically. But
yeah.
I think it's pretty valuable.
Well, that's the biggest thing, is that the most important information to feed Claude is what's actually happening on site, right? So the biggest challenge that we're trying to overcome is like, how do you build the simplest interface so that everyone who's working on the site wants to be able to upload that data? Because your data in the office is only going to be as good as the people that are on site that are providing it to you, right? So for those of you guys who are on site, like in using Claude and uploading that information, where do you find let's talk about not the wins, but what are some of the biggest pain points of getting the information back to the office? Like what happened on site, sending photos, sending reports, any of these things.
Just get the actual.
Yeah,
That's, yeah, there's no communication once you get that information. It's just, yeah, basically the guys buying into the technology, right?
yeah,
Buying into systems that create with your AI.
yeah. The best way we found to get your actual site team to buy in is actually going to site, interviewing the people on site to be like, if we could build you the simplest interface possible to upload this information, what would that look like? And then getting your actual team involved. So it's not just coming from management, it's coming from the entire team. That way when they go to use it, it's like, well, you assisted us in designing this product, let's all use it together, right? And that's the cool thing now, is all the most valuable information is going to come from transcriptions, from site, from client meetings. It's all the things we say and then put into action, right? So that's our strategy, is going to site, meeting your team, understanding what they want, so that when they go to use it, it's like, oh, I built this, or I felt like I was a part of building this product. Who's going to try Claude after today? I think everyone. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We'd love to get one group photo, because we totally forgot to do it last time, and that would be awesome. And if anybody wants to do a quick 60-second testimonial with Avery and Elliot, it'd be awesome, because then you'll be part of the submission video to Claude, and you might get to head office to Claude, might catch wind of you, and put your actual things into practice. So it'd be really cool if you want to do that. Thank you guys.